Well, hello, everybody. This is Universal Truth of Mankind. I'm Dave, your host of the show about all of us. The title of this show is really Happy Birthday to Mankind. So, happy birthday to everyone there. Now, many of you know that Rosh HaShannah is upon us or just passed. Rosh HaShannah really is Yom Teruah. However, it's still the idea of birthday of modern man with a soul. We'll talk a little more about that in a moment. I have not done any videos in a while because I had to reorganize my thoughts and think. And one thing my grandfather told me, and he was a great mentor to me, he explained that it's very important for people to be intelligent. And what he told me is that intelligence is not agreeing. Intelligence is not necessarily digging for information. But he said intelligence means a person can change their mind on things. And they may change their mind to here, and then next time they may change their mind back. That's okay, he told me. He says it's important that people think things out for themselves. You can't tell them what to think. You have to permit them to think things out. And so sometimes people meander a little bit. Well, all my life, thanks to my grandfather, I questioned everything. I've had Christians put a Bible in front of me and say, oh, here's the New Testament. Believe this or go to hell. I've seen Jews say, here you go. This is our scriptures. I've even seen Muslims saying, here's our scriptures. I've had a Hindu friend who say, here's our scripture. And I went through this over with a lot of different religions and a lot of different people who came from different denominations and sects of various religions. And I'm finally at the point where the religious box is too small for me. And that's why I have not been showing lately. I've been kind of sitting back and trying to say, who am I? But not a who am I in an egotistical sense, but rather, who am I before the Creator? And this is an important question that no one asks themselves. Now, you may say, oh, someone might ask themselves. Well, I wonder about that. I wonder about that. But I decided the religious box are too small. Let me show you the history of myself so you can see how I progressed over time. And then you'll better understand what I mean about religious box. I'm not anti-God. I'm not an atheist. I'm not a deist. I'm not those type of, or pantheist. I'm not anything of that sort. I'm a very spiritual individual, and that's what I keyed in on. So let me start here. As early as about 6, 7 years old, I started sensing there was a God. I started sensing, well, actually even before that God was trying to get my attention. And even though I was growing up in a world, remember, this is during the 60s and early 70s. Even though I lived in a world that was in somewhat of a chaotic form because of oil, because of the hippie movement. I'm not saying whether they're good or bad. I'm just saying this all caused issues. Vietnam War, which I remember, it was a lot of protests and so on and so forth. It was a very difficult time in our history. So there's a lot of people saying, well, God doesn't exist. And then there are people who said that God does exist. So I always had this scale working in my mind. Is there a God? Isn't there a God? And I had to search it out. And really, my grandfather taught me, which I'll mention quite a few times through future videos, taught me that it's okay to change your mind. But ultimately speaking, you got to ask the right question. The right question is not, is there God or isn't there God? The right question is, who is God? And then, who are you in relationship to God, and who are you in relationship to others? I took that very hard at a young age. So I decided at a young age to start pursuing God, whatever that meant. I looked into Christianity. You have to understand, let me step back for a moment. I grew up in the 70s. And what happened during the 70s? All I saw were Holocaust movies. There's one Holocaust movie after the other, after the other, after the other. I mean, and at that time was a mere 30 years, 25, 30 years from the end of World War II. So a lot of these ideas are fresh in people's mind. And I was feeling that. I was part of it. And all I knew is it meant a bullet in my head. So it was very easy for me to say, well, let me look at Christianity because God forbid this happen again, maybe I can be spared. So to cut this really short, I started looking at different scriptures. I looked at Christianity. I looked at the Hebrew Bible. Judaism. I looked at Islam. I looked at Hinduism, and so on and so forth. I looked at a lot of different sources because I wanted to find out who God was. And what I found out was people don't argue Scripture, but rather they argue the interpretation of Scripture. And this is what drew me crazy, because my grandfather taught me how to learn. He taught me how to discern. He taught me that when you want to learn something, you have to get into the mind of the people of the time, the mind of the people that were written to, the audience. And you also had to get in the mind of the people who were being written about. Don't cloud your mind with other things. Otherwise, you're going to start interpreting according to your walk of life here now, which does not fit. So I decided to do exactly that. And I decided that this religious box that I was in for all these years, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, was not appropriate for me. Because I realized I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. I'm bigger than a religious box. And then I started discovering that scriptures were never argued over. Oh yeah, the Torah. The New Testament, and so on and so forth. But what they did do was change the narrative by interpreting it different by other people. Everyone put their spin on things because they ultimately want to control. I don't care which religion you're talking about. I ran into this over and over and over. So one day I sat back, just about 4 years ago, so we're catching up real quick because I don't want to take a long time on this. 4 years ago, I decided to look at Abraham's life. Because to me, Abraham was like perfect non-religious person. And I observed his life. And then I said, well, you know, I got to go back to Genesis chapter 1. And so I started looking at Genesis 1. And then after that, I realized I had to look at Jacob / Israel, when he was renamed to Israel. And I had to learn about his walk of life. And I came to an amazing conclusion. There's a universal truth for all of mankind. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what your profession is. I don't care if if you feel that you don't belong or that you do belong. It's for everybody. And as I started picking this stuff out of the Torah, started picking out of the book of Genesis and the rest of the what's called the Torah, that's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. I started realizing that God was speaking to the very core of us. But we get hung up in the narrative of the stories. And we start treating them as stories, but we don't look at what's being really taught here. And so this past late spring, early summer, I started thinking it's time for me to shut down. So I shut down. I didn't go to shul. I didn't go to any religious services of any kind. And I sat back and I said to myself, who am I? Who am I in relation to everybody else? Who am I in relationship to the Creator? And I started assembling all this information. And I started figuring out that religion has to be pushed aside. And so I started focusing on man being a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. And when I flipped that over, things started becoming very clear. So I have over 50 years of experience in terms of trying to figure out the universal truth of mankind. And by the way, I started Universal Truth of Mankind all the way back in 2004. So this is not a new organization. This has been around for a while. But I kept tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. And now I'm finally tweaked it to where this is more of a soul-oriented organization. So you're going to find in future videos, I'm going to be talking about various things. I'll be talking about the ego. I'm going to be talking about the soul. I'm going to talk about the body and mind. I'm going to be talking about the levels of the soul. I'm going to be talking about a whole host of things. Holistic spiritual healing I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be hitting on a lot of things, and I'm going to be doing videos to bring this information to you. I'm also going to offer courses, 4-week and 8-week courses. If you're interested, please email. Go to utom.org, that's utom.org, and you'll see my email there. Just cut and paste it. The email address is doublemenorah, all one word, @yahoo.com. Feel free to contact me. Now, I will be charging for these courses. The videos I'm not going to be charging for, but the courses I'll be charging for. It's going to be nominal. I just simply want to be able to support the internet, usage, some software I'm going to need because I want to slowly improve the quality of these videos. So, got to start somewhere. So I'm starting here. So I am looking forward to start sharing all this volumes of information, and it's out there for all of us. I'm not making things up. I'm simply presenting stuff that's there that's been overlooked. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be Christian. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be anything. Just be open-minded and desire that connection with the Creator. And I'll be teaching you what I've learned, or I should be saying sharing with you. If you like this video, please share it with others. Please comment. Very important. I want to get this out to people. So this is the birthday of mankind. I found it very curious how I went through this paradigm shift recently. And how I said, I'm going to open it after Labor Day, not paying attention to the Hebrew calendar. And finding out that I said, I wanted to do it Wednesday after Labor Day. And Wednesday after Labor Day is the end of Rosh HaShannah, Yom Teruah. So it's the day of new beginnings. It's also a birthday for mankind. Yes, mankind's older than 6,000 years, so don't get me wrong. But something happened 6,000 years ago that made us as beasts into a man. I'm going to be covering that subject at some point as well. So stay put, stay tight, stay tuned. You will see what I'm talking about. So it's happy birthday to all of you. It's all happy birthday to all of us. And I'm really looking forward to starting this whole new path where I'm trying to help mankind. I'm trying to help everybody, whoever you are. I want to share with you what I found. And you're going to be surprised that this stuff has been in your faces, in front of you all these years, and you never saw it. Why? Because you were given an official narrative, rather than using your own eyes, your own intellect. You just blindly went with whatever the religious leader, the clergyman, told you to do. You did not pay attention. They're all guilty of this. Okay? I'm going to tell you right now, they're all guilty of it. Now, I'm not trying to make enemies of anybody. That's not my purpose here. I'm simply saying, and don't get me wrong, it's our responsibility. It's not fair that we put our clergy in the spotlight and say, solve my problems. Because ultimately, that's what we're doing. They're not there to solve our problems. We're here to solve our own problems. So keep that in mind in the future. And I will be posting at least one video a week from this point on, unless, of course, I'm on vacation or, God forbid, I get sick or something like that. But that's my plan. So stay tuned. And again, happy birthday to everybody. utom.org, Universal Truth to Mankind. Take care, everybody, and have a peace. May peace be upon you.